Can you please let Mommy rest just one day? The little girl asked her mom's boss at the back of the store. The luxury handmade leather shoe store glowed under warm golden lighting, every surface polished, every display arranged with quiet precision. It was the kind of place designed to feel effortless, even though nothing inside it was allowed to be. Behind the counter, Marigold stood as if she belonged to that system. Her posture was straight, her smile controlled, her voice calm as she finished assisting a customer who barely looked back at her. Everything about her suggested stability, confidence, and quiet professionalism. Only the smallest details betrayed the truth. Her fingers pressed briefly against each other as if she were steadying something inside her body. The movement was subtle, almost invisible, but it lingered long enough to matter. She shifted her weight slightly, favoring one leg to reduce the pressure in her lower back, then straightened again before anyone could notice. The skin-toned bandages wrapped around her fingers blended carefully with her complexion, but faint traces of dried blood remained along the edges, quiet evidence of the extra work she did long after the store closed the night before to secure her livelihood as a single mother. When the door chimed again, she reset herself instantly. From the back office, Rowan Blake observed through the monitor. At 32, he had built his business on control and consistency, and the store reflected that philosophy perfectly. He did not watch people in the way others might. He watched movement, timing, and performance, tracking each detail as part of a larger system. When his attention settled on Marigold, he did not see exhaustion. He saw disruption. A fraction of delay, a slight imbalance, a break in rhythm that did not belong. To him, it was not personal. It was inefficiency. In the storage area, just beyond the main floor, Nova sat quietly on the ground. She held a piece of paper and a small set of crayons, drawing with slow, careful attention. The picture showed two figures, one small and one larger. The smaller figure was filled in completely, but the larger one was different. Its outline was uneven. Its body was fading. Nova paused and looked toward the front of the store, watching her mother for a long moment before standing up. Rowan stepped out from the back to check the floor as closing time approached. He noticed the child immediately. She did not belong there. "You should not be in this area," he said, his tone calm and controlled. Nova looked up at him without hesitation. She reached into her pocket and pulled out 3 crumpled dollar bills, holding them tightly before extending her hand. "Can you let my mom rest? Just one day?" Rowan's eyes dropped briefly to the money, then returned to her face. His brow tightened slightly. This was not a situation he was prepared for. Not because it was emotional, but because it disrupted order. Nova continued, her voice steady. "Mom's back hurts. She doesn't sleep at night." She paused, then asked quietly, "If she keeps working, will she disappear?" The space between them fell into a stillness that felt heavier than silence. Rowan does not drop his pen. He does not feel a pang of guilt. Instead, his brow furrows into a deep, sharp V. He looks at the crumpled money, then at the child, and finally at the camera feed of Marigold. "Who let this child into my store?" Rowan mutters. His chest tightens, not with sympathy, but with an intense, cold irritation. A professional boundary has been crossed, the system has been violated, and Rowan Blake does not tolerate a broken system. The golden lights of Blake's artisanal footwear snap to black. By day, Marigold glides across marble floors, a flawless mannequin in a tailored suit, but when the sun sets, the crisp uniform is stripped away, revealing the brutal reality of a single mother. The aggressive, rhythmic punching of an old Singer machine shatters the quiet night. It is 3 a.m. in a cramped apartment. A flickering lamp casts harsh shadows over mountains of cheap polyester. Marigold hunches over the needle. Her eyes are bloodshot. Her fingers, the same fingers that laced $1,000 shoes hours ago, are raw. She winces as the rough thread slices into a fresh cut, quickly wrapping another flesh-colored bandage around her knuckle. Across the dim room, pinned to the peeling door, glares a bright yellow eviction. Notice: 7 days. Below it, on a scratched table, lies a stack of final warnings for Nova's preschool tuition. They rest heavily next to a plastic asthma inhaler and a medical bill. Marigold was once a top-tier fashion student. Now, she is drowning, sewing cheap garments for pennies just to keep her daughter breathing. Suddenly, the machine stops. Marigold's shoulders collapse. She drops her head onto the cold metal plate, too exhausted to even cry. From the dark corner, a tiny figure emerges: Nova. Standing on her tiptoes, Nova pulls a worn pillow from the bed. She carefully slides it under Marigold's cheek. Then, with small, clumsy hands, Nova begins to press against Marigold's stiff lower back. She kneads the tense muscles with all her meager strength. Marigold doesn't open her eyes, but she reaches back and wraps her bruised fingers around Nova's tiny hand, holding onto it as if it is the only thing keeping her from falling off the edge of the world. Back to the tense office atmosphere. Nova still stood there, motionless in front of Rowan's desk with innocent eyes, completely unaware she had just stepped into a restricted zone. Rowan Blake suddenly raised his voice. His sharp shout tore through the silence. "Whose child is this? Who allowed her in here?" Not far away, Marigold heard her boss raging. Her heart tightened. She knew she was caught. Stunned and in extreme panic, she rushed into the room. Her body hunched over, her head bowed low, ready to endure the harshest scolding. She stood there, trembling, hoping this storm would not sweep away the last bit of peace for the mother and daughter. Marigold stands before him. Her spine is rigid. Her hands are clasped tightly behind her back to hide the fresh bandages. Rowan doesn't look up immediately. When he does, his eyes are like ice. "I hired you to sell a lifestyle, Marigold," Rowan says, his voice flat. "Not to run a daycare in my stockroom. Mr. Blake, I apologize. It was a child care emergency. It won't." "This cannot happen again," Rowan interrupts. He drops his pen. The sound echoes like a gunshot. "My clients pay for perfection. They do not pay to see a child wandering through the inventory or a saleswoman looking like she hasn't slept in days." He leans forward, lacing his fingers together. "We maintain a strict professional boundary here. Brand image is the only thing that matters. If you blur the lines between your personal mess and this company, you become a liability." He doesn't ask about her back. He doesn't mention the $3. The distance between them feels like a physical wall of glass. Marigold nods once, swallowing the lump in her throat. "It is understood, Mr. Blake." She turns and walks out, leaving Rowan in his perfect, immaculate, and utterly empty office. The next day, the showroom is busy. Soft jazz floats over the murmur of wealthy clients. From the glass balcony of his office, Rowan Blake watches. He doesn't look at sales figures. He is watching Marigold. Down below, a demanding client points to a display box on the highest shelf. Marigold smiles. She steps on her toes and stretches upward. Rowan's eyes narrow. Through the crisp fabric of her uniform, he sees the unnatural stiffening of her spine. As her hand grips the heavy box, a fresh, bright drop of crimson blood blooms instantly through the bandage on her finger. She flinches. It is a micro-expression, gone in a second. She lowers the box and delivers her signature, flawless smile. Rowan retreats into the shadows. He noticed her posture was off. To him, it was a system malfunction. He walks to his desk and opens a manila folder, Marigold's personnel file. He picks up a red pen. The logic is clear. Unauthorized minor on company property, diminished physical efficiency, liability risk. Rowan stares at the file. His jaw clenches. "If I ignore this, it becomes a pattern," he mutters. "A business survives on discipline. Sympathy is a luxury he cannot afford." He presses the intercom. "Send Marigold up." 2 minutes later, the door opens. Marigold steps inside. Her posture is military straight, but her face is pale. She knows what is coming. "Mr. Blake," she says, her voice barely a whisper. Rowan looks up. He takes a breath, preparing to deliver the cold termination speech he has given 100 times before. "Marigold, regarding your conduct yesterday." He stops. His gaze drops to her hands. They are vibrating with a suppressed, agonizing pain she is desperately trying to hide. The fresh blood has dried, leaving a dark, rust-colored stain on the bandage. Rowan looks from her bleeding hands to her exhausted, hollow eyes. The termination speech dies in his throat. Slowly, Rowan closes the folder. Thud. He leans back in his leather chair. His voice is a flat command. "Take tomorrow off." He expects relief. Instead, absolute terror washes over Marigold's face. The mask shatters. "No," she gasps, clutching his desk. "Please, Mr. Blake, don't fire me. I can work harder." Rowan frowns. "It is not a request, Marigold. Your shift is covered." "You don't understand." Her voice cracks as desperation overrides fear. "I can't. If I rest, it means I'm replaceable. It means you'll realize you don't need me. I can't afford to rest." She cries out, a single tear cutting down her cheek. "A day off means the landlord locks us out. It means Nova doesn't get her medicine. Please, I can stand. Let me work." The silence that crashes into the office is deafening. Rowan is paralyzed. He stares at the terrified woman gripping his desk. "I am not firing you, Marigold," Rowan says, his voice softening with a sudden heavy realization. "It is a paid day off. Your full salary is covered." Marigold freezes, her breath hitching. "Paid?" "Paid," he repeats, looking at his immaculate office as if seeing its cruelty for the first time. "Go home. Take your daughter to the park. Just go be a mother for a day." She stares at him, a single tear escaping. The silence is absolute. Rowan realizes his empire wasn't built on excellence, but on a terror so deep that his employees feared a day of rest more than death itself. For the first time, the machine has stopped. It is early afternoon. The city park is bright, bustling with families and bathed in crisp autumn sunlight. Rowan Blake drives his silver sedan slowly down the Parkside Avenue. He was supposed to be reviewing quarterly reports. Instead, his mind is circling back to a terrified woman begging to keep her job. Then, he spots them. Sitting on a wooden bench near a busy playground is Marigold. She is asleep, but she is not careless. Even in her exhaustion, her left arm is wrapped securely around Nova, holding the little girl snugly against her side. Nova is perfectly safe, sitting quietly with a picture book on her lap. Rowan pulls his car to the curb. He doesn't get out immediately. He watches them through the windshield. He notices Marigold's free hand resting on her knee. Even in deep sleep, it is clenched into a tight, trembling fist. The knuckles are white. It is the hand of a woman who cannot afford to let her guard down for a single second. The stress is woven into her bones. Rowan hesitates. His hand hovers over the door handle. Finally, he steps out. The crunch of autumn leaves under his expensive shoes is swallowed by the ambient noise of the park. As he approaches the bench, Nova looks up from her book. Her big, innocent eyes recognize the cold boss from the store. She opens her mouth, about to loudly say hello and potentially wake her exhausted mother. Rowan quickly raises a finger to his lips. He offers a very faint, gentle smile. "Shh," he breathes. Nova closes her mouth and nods, staying perfectly still against her mother's side. Rowan looks down at Marigold. She is shivering slightly in the crisp breeze. Without a word, he slips off his tailored wool vest. Moving with extreme care, he drapes it over Marigold's shoulders, tucking it gently to keep the wind away. She sighs softly at the warmth, her tense posture relaxing just a fraction, but she doesn't wake. Rowan reaches into a paper bag he bought from a nearby cafe. He places a warm cup of hot cocoa and a wrapped pastry right next to Nova. He points to the cocoa, then to Nova, signaling that it is for her. He doesn't linger. He doesn't wait for gratitude. He simply turns and walks back to his car. As he grasps the steering wheel, his chest feels incredibly heavy. This doesn't fix anything. A bitter voice echoes in his mind. A warm vest and a cup of sugar. It's a pathetic bandage on a broken system. He closes his eyes. The smell of the luxury leather interior suddenly vanishes, replaced by the phantom scent of cheap machine oil and dusty fabric. A memory, buried deep beneath years of ruthless corporate success, violently claws its way to the surface. He sees his mother, a poor seamstress. He sees her hunched over a clattering machine in a dim, freezing basement. He remembers the day her heart simply gave out from exhaustion. She collapsed right onto the metal sewing plate. He hadn't been there to catch her. He hadn't been there to tell her to rest. Rowan opens his eyes. They are burning. He grips the steering wheel so hard his own knuckles turn white. He looks at Marigold in the rearview mirror, sleeping in his vest, clinging to her daughter to survive. He bows his head against the steering wheel. A suffocating wave of guilt crashes over him. "I built it," Rowan whispers, his voice cracking with a bitter, devastating realization. "I built the exact same kind of place she died in." The next morning, Blake's artisanal footwear remains magnificent and cold under the golden lights. Marigold steps into the employee locker room. Hanging neatly on her hook is an expensive wool vest, freshly dry cleaned. She knew the vest was his because she had seen him wear it before. She gently touches the fabric. The faint, rich scent of mahogany and cold brew coffee still lingers. A strange feeling, a mix of gratitude and confusion, blooms in her chest. She understands now. Behind the CEO's iron exterior lies a quiet care he would never speak aloud. Marigold takes a deep breath. She pulls a battered folder from her bag, its corners frayed from overuse. She walks toward the CEO's office. Knock, knock. "Enter," Rowan's voice answers, low and sharp. Marigold steps inside. Rowan is hunched over a revenue chart. He doesn't look up, asking simply, "How are you feeling, Marigold? Was the day off sufficient?" "I am fine, Mr. Blake. Thank you for the vest." Marigold timidly places the folder on his desk. "I drew these during my sleepless nights. I would like you to look at them." Rowan stops his pen. He looks up at her, then down at the folder. The silence stretches. He doesn't smile, but he doesn't dismiss her either. He reaches out and opens the cover. Inside are detailed sketches of a women's shoe. Not a towering, impractical stiletto, but a revolutionary design. An ergonomic block heel, soft suede leather, and strategic cushioning placed perfectly at the arch. Rowan's brow furrows slightly. He pulls up a chair right next to his own. "Sit down. Explain the weight distribution mechanism of this heel to me." Marigold freezes for a heartbeat. She sits down. The distance between them vanishes. She can smell that rich, warm scent directly from him. Rowan does not skim the pages. He leans in close, his sharp eyes scrutinizing every line. "The arch concept here is brilliant," Rowan says. His voice is no longer the harsh bark of a CEO, but deep, steady, and professional. "But if you change the cut angle here, right where the sole meets the heel, the gravity will disperse into the ground much better instead of crushing the toes." He picks up a pencil and begins adjusting a line on her sketch. As he guides the point, his finger accidentally brushes against the back of Marigold's hand. Both freeze. A quiet electric shock ripples through the silent room. Rowan doesn't pull his hand away immediately. His gaze leaves the sketch and drops to her hands. He sees the frayed bandages hiding the fresh, bleeding needle pricks from the night before. Rowan's eyes darken. It is a deep, agonizing look filled with heavy sorrow and a self-blame he cannot hide. He says nothing. He offers no hollow pity. He just slowly leans back, clearing his throat to break the thick tension. "Fix that angle," he says, his voice hoarse. "This has the potential to become our flagship line." A few days later, a strange shift occurs on the showroom floor. Behind the registers and in the stockroom, high-end ergonomic chairs with lumbar support are suddenly installed. In the employee break area, a commercial-grade espresso machine appears, filling the air with the rich aroma of roasted beans. "Did the boss hit his head?" an employee whispers in shock. "He has never cared about our comfort before." Rowan walks past them, his face as cold and unreadable as a stone statue. He offers no explanation. He does not announce it as a reward. To everyone else, it is just an operational upgrade. But Marigold stands there, her fingers gently tracing the back of the new chair. She looks up at the frosted glass of the CEO's office. She knows the truth. It is the silent concession of a man who lives by ironclad rules. He cannot change the whole world, but he is trying to ease the pain in her feet in the most discreet way he knows how. Marigold's heart skips a beat. For the first time, she doesn't feel like a broken gear in a machine. She feels seen. The heavy oak doors of the boardroom swung shut with a final, echoing thud. Inside, the air was thin, smelling of expensive cologne and the metallic scent of an impending execution. Rowan Blake sat at the head of the long marble table, his fingers laced, his expression as unyielding as a frozen lake. Across from him sat Mr. Sterling, the chairman of the board. Sterling leaned forward, his silver hair catching the morning sun. He dropped a stack of internal audit photos onto the table. They were grainy images of the new ergonomic chairs, the commercial espresso machine, and the stockroom logs. "Explain these irregularities, Rowan." Sterling's voice was a low, dangerous rumble. "We are a luxury brand, not a charity house. You've loosened the protocols. You've allowed a breach of security, a child in the inventory. And for what? A saleswoman with a fractured life?" Rowan didn't blink. He didn't defend Marigold's character. He didn't mention her exhaustion or her talent. Instead, he leaned forward, his gaze locking onto Sterling's. "I am not running a charity, Sterling. I am protecting an asset." Rowan's voice was ice cold. "The system you are so desperate to protect is outdated. It's a machine that grinds people until they break, and broken people cannot sell perfection. The rules are the rules." Sterling slammed his palm on the table. "She is a liability. Her personal mess has bled into our showroom. The board is unanimous, Rowan. She must be terminated today to restore discipline. If she stays, it sends a message that the brand is soft." Rowan stared at him, a flicker of something dark and powerful moving in his eyes. He wasn't thinking about Marigold now. He was thinking about the ghost of his mother and the millions of mothers just like her. If a mother is considered a liability because she refuses to let her child starve, then the brand doesn't have a soul, Rowan declared, his voice rising with a heavy, undeniable authority. And a brand without a soul is just a graveyard of expensive leather. If we remove her for this, then the system is the problem, not her. Sterling's face turned a deep, angry shade of red. "You are overstepping, Rowan. You serve at the pleasure of this board. Fire her, or we will find a CEO who knows how to follow an order." The room went silent. The other board members held their breath. Rowan slowly stood up, smoothing the front of his suit. He looked at each of them, his presence filling the room with a terrifying calm. "Then replace me too," Rowan said. The words were flat, weighty, final. He didn't wait for a response. He turned and walked out of the room, leaving the most powerful men in the company in a state of stunned, paralyzed silence. Outside in the hallway, Marigold was waiting. She was trembling, her face ashen, clutching her bag as if it were a shield. She had heard the raised voices. She knew her life was hanging by a thread. Rowan didn't stop to comfort her. He didn't offer a hug or a soft word. He walked straight to her and dropped the heavy folder of her designs onto her lap. His eyes were fierce, burning with a cold fire. "The board wants you gone," he said, his voice a low, sharp command. "I've put my neck on the line to keep you here. Now, get inside that room and show them why I'm right." Marigold looked at the folder, then at him, her eyes wide with terror. "Mr. Blake, Don't cry," Rowan interrupted, his tone harsh but strangely encouraging. "Don't beg, just go in there and prove them wrong." The boardroom is a theater of power. 12 executives in bespoke suits stare at Marigold. She stands at the head of the long marble table, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. On the massive screen behind her is the 3D rendering of her design, the working-class elegance. The target demographic for this line, Marigold stammers. Her voice trembles, her hands are slick with cold sweat. The heavy brass laser pointer slips from her fingers. It clatters loudly onto the polished marble, rolling to a stop. A collective sigh of impatience ripples through the executives. Sterling, the chairman, checks his luxury watch. The silence is crushing. Panic seizes Marigold's throat. The walls feel like they are closing in. Desperate, she looks to the far end of the table. Rowan sits in the shadows. He doesn't jump up. He doesn't speak for her. He simply holds her terrified gaze. Slowly, deliberately, he gives her a single, firm nod. Prove them wrong. Marigold closes her eyes for a fraction of a second. She breathes in the freezing, conditioned air. She remembers the eviction notice. She remembers the needle pricks. She remembers Nova's tired little hands. When she opens her eyes, the terrified saleswoman is gone. "You are looking at this wrong," Marigold says. Her voice is suddenly clear, ringing with an undeniable, fierce authority. Sterling frowns, sitting up straighter. "Excuse me? You think luxury is merely about looking expensive." Marigold points directly at the screen. "But true luxury is the absence of pain." She taps the table with her bandaged fingers. "Look at this prototype. It is a deep burgundy suede pump. From the front, it features the razor-sharp, elegant profile of a classic stiletto. It projects absolute authority. But look at the side profile. The executives lean in, their eyes drawn to the design. It features a modified, ergonomic block heel," Marigold explains, her words flowing with passion. "Inside the toe box, there is a hidden, high-density memory foam cushion, and the cut angle right here," she traces a line on the screen, "shifts the center of gravity entirely away from the toes, driving the impact directly down into the ground." The room falls dead silent. They are actually listening. "This shoe is not for the woman sitting in a chauffeured car," Marigold continues, staring down the executives. "It is for the woman standing for 12 hours a day, the woman who refuses to sacrifice her dignity for comfort. This is luxury armor for the working class." Sterling leans back, crossing his arms. He looks skeptical. "It is a nice sentiment, but Blake's is a heritage brand. This sounds too practical. It lacks the prestige our wealthy clients demand." "It is exactly what our brand lacks," a deep voice interrupts. All heads turn to Rowan. He steps into the light. He isn't looking at the board. He is looking at the brilliant design on the screen. "My mother was a seamstress," Rowan says. His voice is thick with a raw, unfamiliar emotion that commands absolute attention. "She stood for 14 hours a day. By the time she was 40, her feet were permanently deformed. She spent her life creating beautiful things for others while living in agony." Rowan turns to Sterling, his eyes piercing. "We sell a facade, Sterling. Marigold is offering us a soul. This design doesn't lower our prestige. It elevates it. It says we respect the women who build the world, not just the ones who buy it." Rowan gestures to Marigold. "The genius is hers, and if we reject it, we are fools." A heavy silence blankets the room. Then, slowly, Sterling nods. A murmur of agreement follows. The project is approved. Minutes later, the crushing tension breaks. A corporate photographer enters to document the new initiative. "Smile for the internal newsletter, everyone," the photographer calls out, raising the camera. Flash. The bright light bursts through the room. Marigold flinches violently. Her instincts take over. A trauma response from a past spent hiding from the world, from debt collectors, from judgment. She shrinks back, trying to step out of the frame, desperately wanting to disappear into the background. Suddenly, a solid warmth appears beside her. Rowan steps into the frame, standing shoulder to shoulder with her. He doesn't put his arm around her. He doesn't offer a romantic gesture. He just stands there, an immovable anchor of respect. He leans in slightly, his voice dropping to a low whisper meant only for her. "Look straight at the lens," Rowan murmurs. "You don't have to hide anymore. This moment belongs to you." Marigold stops retreating. She takes a breath, lifts her chin, and looks directly into the blinding flash, and for the first time in years, she holds her ground. 6 months later. The lonely clatter of the midnight sewing machine is completely gone. Instead, Blake's third-floor design studio hums with quiet focus. Marigold is an apprentice designer now. No magical promotions, just exhausting hours fighting to prove her worth every single day. But the flesh-colored bandages are gone. Her hands are healing. When she leaves the building, she doesn't go to a second job. She goes home to sleep. Rowan paid a heavy price. His defiance in the boardroom cost him significant voting shares. He remains CEO, but his absolute power is permanently fractured. Yet, walking down the glass corridor, the icy tension in his shoulders has vanished. The untouchable executive is gone, replaced by a grounded, quieter man. Late Friday afternoon, golden light spills into the studio. In a safe corner sits a small, bright yellow desk Rowan bought himself. Nova sits there, legs swinging happily as she colors. No longer hiding in dark stockrooms, she is a welcomed presence. The glass door opens. Rowan walks in, his suit jacket gone, sleeves casually rolled up. Ignoring productivity metrics, he walks straight to the rug, sits cross-legged on the floor, and carefully places a wooden block atop Nova's leaning tower. Nova looks up from her crayons. "Mr. Blake?" she says softly. "Yes, Nova?" Rowan replies, focused on the tower. Nova tilts her head, her big eyes studying his face. "A long time ago, I gave you my $3. I asked you to let my mommy rest for just one day." Rowan's hand pauses midair. A flicker of old guilt passes through his eyes. "I remember, and I didn't let her." "No," Nova smiles, her eyes shining with innocent wisdom. "You didn't give her a day off, but you make my mommy smile every single day now. Thank you, mister." The room is perfectly still. Then, Rowan laughs. It is a deep, genuine sound that reaches his eyes. He gently ruffles Nova's hair. Standing up, he turns around. Marigold is leaning against the doorframe, a sketchbook clutched to her chest. A radiant smile plays on her lips. The heavy exhaustion that once haunted her is gone. She looks vibrant. She looks alive. Rowan's eyes soften. He crosses the room, stopping just inches from her. The cold professional boundary is gone, replaced by a warm, quiet intimacy built on deep respect. "So," Rowan murmurs, a playful glimmer in his eyes. "About that old request." Marigold raises an eyebrow. "Which one?" "This weekend," Rowan says, stepping a fraction closer. "Would the two of you like to spend that one day off entirely with me?" Marigold looks up into his eyes. The ghosts of their pasts are gone, replaced by the steady light of the present. She nods, her smile answering for her. The frame holds on that beautiful look of understanding. It is no longer just a business. It is the real, earned beginning of a family. The silence in the office remains, but the air has changed. Not all wounds are visible, and not all battles are fought with swords. Sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is simply hold on for one more day. If Marigold and Nova's journey touched your heart, please give this video a like and subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories. Your support helps us bring more hidden human struggles and moments of redemption to light. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. Thank you for watching, and remember, in a world of machines, never lose your soul. See you in the next story.